shout out to all the volunteers that have been here. It takes a massive, massive team to do this. All the other amazing speakers and friends that I've got to see. All of you that are actually here in real life, thank you for being here and being a part of this community, and all of us getting to spend time together as three-dimensional people. That is exciting. That is cool. All of you live streaming it at home in your underwear, thank you for also joining us. That's exciting. Exciting. Hands to yourself. While we're at it, my goodness, thank you to the engineer that probably created the clipping mask. They are probably here at this conference. Without that human being, we could not put a sunset in this beautiful typography. That's incredible. Shout out to that human. I'm from the Midwest. Thank you very much, all four of you. I'm going to inevitably use a ton of Midwest vernacular. It's going to get a little confusing. So I wanted to help us out on some of these idioms and vernacular, and I will undoubtedly be using throughout this talk. I will be dropping an absolute ton of OPEs. If you're not familiar with OPEs, or the party tonight, following this talk at 6:30 downstairs, there's going to be a big party. We're all going to hang out. We're all going to have a lot of fun. There will be lots of OPEs, and that is inevitably, I am so unbelievably sorry. Excuse me, I am so sorry. I hate myself for doing whatever it is I just did. I will be saying things like, alrighty, well, this is one we will use a ton at the party tonight. Alrighty, well just purely means I have no idea how to end this conversation. Alrighty, well, one of us just needs to mosey along, you know? And then last but not least, all good, no worries. And if you've ever met a Midwesterner, you know all good, no worries means I will be replaying this encounter for the rest of my life in perpetuity. And why did I act and say the things I just said? My name is Tad Carpenter, and I run a design and branding studio called Carpenter Collective. Our studio, we are a design and brand studio. We do lots of different types of work. But really the thing that brings it kind of together is we like to create unique visual experiences. And that's a little buzzwordy, but we do such diverse work. That's what we really start to kind of what brings us together. But for us, more than anything, and I think probably for a lot of you in this room right now, or I hope so, really what we do is we love to make things. We love to make things that didn't exist the day before. That's what we all get to do. That's the unique position every one of us in this room gets to do every day, and that's a gift. And for us, at our studio, we don't discriminate on the types of stuff we like to make. We'll make anything for anybody. A lot of what we do, the backbone of our business is brand identity, so we create lots of logos and marks and iconography and various brand systems. We do a lot of work in food and beverage, specifically restaurants. There's a restaurant we designed. The Craft Brewer Boulevard Brewery is a good example of we create lots of experience spaces and environments for clients. Boulevard Brewery came to us a handful of years ago when they purchased a new building and wanted to create a museum devoted to the history of beer. And not just the history of Boulevard beer, they wanted to tell like the whole story of beer within this museum. I mean, I'm talking caveman puddle beer all the way up to like the forefathers to today. And for us, we really wanted this experience to be a more analog experience. We didn't want people walking around on their phones or touching digital screens. You can see there are pulleys and cranks and all these things that felt very Midwest. This is a Midwestern brewery. It felt very unique as an experience for people to engage. I don't know if anybody's ever been to children's museums. I think those are some of the most innovative and creative spaces you can ever go to, just in the way they create engagement. And for us, we very much were inspired by that. And for us, when building this space, we also found so much overlap of the cognitive ability between drunk people and toddlers that just made like a ton of sense. You can see some of that space. And of course, there's tons and tons of murals within the space. On the second floor of this building, we branded a full beer hall. And then most recently, on the fourth floor of this building, we designed the rec deck, which is a full shuffleboard bar also, and some of the identity materials there. The logo suite, we got to design all the courts. We do loads of retail environments and retail experiences for people like Warby Parker. For 13 years, we created tons and tons of experiences and events for Macy's. Designing the visual system for the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade for years. Loads of food and beverage, specifically in beer. This was a rebrand we did for a Sacramento brewery. Someone's familiar? Awesome. Sacramento? All right. Hello, yeah. Welcome. beer, pasta packaging, tortilla packaging. Oh my land, do we do a lot of coffee packaging. Coffee packaging, coffee packaging, coffee packaging. And of course, you'd be surprised. It's 2025, do a lot of coffee packaging. That means you also now do a ton of cannabis packaging. We've been branding and packaging cannabis so you all can feel right. And all kinds of consumer packaging that we get to work with. A campaign we did for Sonic. What's really fun about packaging is then you go out in the world and you see how you animals treat our work. Thanks a lot. My gosh, over the years, doing hundreds and hundreds of gig posters for musicians and tours. I've been fortunate enough to illustrate 25 to 30 children's books in the marketplace today, which I'm very passionate about. Getting to do children's books only means you also get to work in book jacket design, getting to design lots and lots of book jackets. Sometimes those book jackets become insanely popular and become New York Times bestsellers, which is very exciting. That means it becomes a Hollywood film, which is very exciting, but not for us. That just means they replace your book jacket. Thanks a lot, Hollywood. I'm from the Midwest, and I'm from the great city of Kansas City, Missouri. I am born, bred, and buried in that wonderful city. I love being from Kansas City. What I love about being from Kansas City, and I'm sure just like all of you, being from the Midwest and being from the Kansas City has really influenced who I am and shaped who I am as a human and as a person and how I work and how I create and how I interact with people. And, you know, despite Kansas City and some of the shortcomings it has, it's an amazing place to live and be creative. But what's amazing is those attributes that us Midwesterners have and us Kansas Cityans have completely applied to my design practice and myself. Being from Kansas City, we ain't showy people, we act kind, and we understand that talent is never going to be enough. Those are attributes as creative people and designers that I know I carry with me every day. And my land, I don't know if you all know this, but Kansas City's having a real hot moment right now, man. My land, Rob Riggle's from Kansas City, Eric Stonestreet's from Kansas City, Paul Rudd's from Kansas City, Heidi Gardner's from Kansas City. Y'all, Todd Packard's from Kansas City. Ted Lasso's from Kansas City, y'all. Shout out, Teddy. This bozo's from Kansas City. But more importantly, the creative community that came before me and my peers is unbelievable. That really shaped the way our city thinks about creativity. People like Robert Rauschenberg and John Stewart Curry, who attended the Kansas City Art Institute. Thomas Hart Benton, one of my favorite painters of all time, taught at the Art Institute. His studio is still in Kansas City. Kate Spade sold her first handbag ever on the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, just a few blocks from my house. Charlie Bird Parker started experimenting and playing with jazz on the streets of 18th and Vine in Kansas City that really shaped American jazz music. And then the man, the myth, the legend himself, Walt Disney from Marceline, Missouri, but spent a lot of his childhood in Kansas City. His first job was with the Kansas City Star. He was eventually fired from the Kansas City Star for not being imaginative enough. How'd that work out for you, newspapers? But Walt would eventually then create his very first animation studio, Laugh-O-Gram Films, with his best buddy, Ub Iwerks. And the legend has it, they were on a second floor of that building. The first floor was a little diner. And as all us creatives might tend to do, he went down there and racked up quite a bill, quite a tab down there at that diner. And eventually that diner said, Walt, we cannot give you any more food until you pay your tab. So Walt was forced to start bringing cans of beans to work every day. He would keep those cans of beans in his desk drawer. He would eat them. He would leave them open. What happens when that happens? Rodents show up. He would eventually teach a mouse to eat from his hand from his desk drawer. Well, that mouse influenced quite a world after that, right in the smack dab in Kansas City, Missouri. But more than anybody who has influenced me as a creative and our city was a gentleman named J.C. Hall. And J.C. Hall created a company over 100 years ago called Hallmark greeting cards. And we have a younger audience here. A greeting card is a piece of paper that's folded in half. You write a sentiment on the inside and you mail it. Not email it, you mail it. It's wild. It is wacky stuff, you guys. Hallmark's seen some better days. But JC would go around the world and bring the most creative people on the planet to our city and to be a part of this company based in Kansas City. People like Norman Rockwell, one of my favorites, Saul Steinberg. Even amazing things like in the 1930s, when the Great Depression hit and Hallmark had no idea how they were going to survive, Hallmark became the first company in America to start to license Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney works. That's amazing. And I'm always like, how the world did that happen? Walt Disney's wife and J.C. Hall went to grade school together and made this connection. And that's why these relationships and these things that we're all forming, even this weekend, can be so important to us as we continue to move forward in some way. I mean, my God, J.C. brought Salvador Dali in to start making products. If anybody ever tells you you're selling out, you say, no, I'm only buying in. If Salvador's doing greeting cards, come on now. I mean, did we think we needed a greeting card of a Santa with his chest being ripped out? What about a dead butterfly Christmas tree? Did you need that? JC received these paintings and put them right into a drawer and said, thank you very much, man. We will not be reproducing these. These will just live in our library. I've never worked for Hallmark a day in my life. But why I am so grateful for that company outside of all these relationships it's formed is in 1975, they hired a gentleman named Steve Carpenter, and that was my father. My father worked at Hallmark Cards for 42 years. I got to literally grow up in the halls of Hallmark greeting cards in the heyday of that business. Every babysitter I ever had was a stylist, a photographer, a cartoonist, an illustrator, a designer, you name it. I thought everybody was creative. My dad is one of the greatest artists I've ever seen. He is the greatest artist I've ever seen in my life. He's illustrated dozens upon dozens of children's books. He had a nationally syndicated comic strip for years and years called Haywire and Ribbons. He would eventually art direct the first collaboration between Jim Henson and Hallmark Cards. That's my dad with the blonde hair, not the frog. As I said, he's illustrated some of the most amazing books. This is one of my favorite books he's illustrated, Billy Goat's Gruff. It's always a favorite. I grew up in a household that valued creativity. It not only valued it, it enforced it. It was something that we did every day. I was so grateful how supportive he was and valued and understood how this can be a true career and more than that, a calling. For a lot of families, when one of you decides to be creative for the rest of your life, it becomes a big issue, you know? Not all families are so supportive of the creative arts. But my father shared and instilled how valuable and important it was to be creative and share your mind and explore and play. So I know it was around third grade, there was a contest. And my dad really encouraged me to enter this contest. He knew I loved to draw. He knew I liked football. And I grew up in Kansas City, and the Kansas City Chiefs had a contest to draw the season tickets for the Kansas City Chiefs in third grade. And this was the first time I ever experienced what art and commerce really was. And so I tried. I said, I'm going to really put myself out there, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to draw this thing. And I applied, and I won. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. You guys see the hand typography I did, right? My goodness. No, I won. And so I won free season ticket. I mean, the Chiefs were so bad in the 90s, they were giving away free season tickets to children to draw their tickets. I got free season tickets for a year. I got honored at the 50-yard line at a halftime of a game. They sent a football player to my school in a red Ferrari and did an all-school assembly. I mean, my Lord, it was a special day. And I remember, so I was in third grade. I remember after that assembly, I was in third grade, and a fifth grade girl walked up to me and asked me to be her boyfriend. I remember, like, hold the phone here, y'all. If I make you something, you'll give me things and I get older women? This is what art can do for me? I'm not going to be a football player or a fireman. I'm going to be an artist. So what's amazing about these that's amazing is where art and design can take us in these full circle moments in our life. I don't know if you all know, but the Kansas City Chiefs have been on a little bit of a heater the last 5 or 6 years. Oh, yeah. There's my guy. There we go. So over the last 5 or 6 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have started to reach out to me. And we've started to do some projects. Specifically, maybe it's the beginning of a new season. We want to do a commemorative poster. Maybe we win another division championship, 7 in a row. Maybe we go to win one of our 3 recent Super Bowls. No, I'm sorry. Getting to design the commemorative Super Bowl with the Chiefs. These are all super fun projects, but that full circle moment of this is what got me interested in design, and the fact that I'm getting to do this now is so unbelievably special. I believe in believing in something. I think that's what's fun about sports, is you are just blindly believing in something you have zero control over, and I love that. That's special, and that's what I love that about sports. I'm a huge Royals fan. This is me and my friend Brad in '85 when we won the World Series. And this is me and Brad in 30 years later when we finally won the World Series again. In the same fountain, almost the same outfits. I love, even with sports and design, it's all about discipline and dedication. It's about teamwork and leadership. It's, oh my gosh, you value you value practicing your craft. That is so important. I think we lose sight of that sometimes, practicing our craft. So getting to do work with franchises and people that I believe in, like the Kansas City Royals. They ask us to do murals and installations all the time. I love to show how we install a mural. Here's an example of a mural we installed for the Royals. What I love about murals and these giant experiences is that it's a communal experience. And to me, I've always found that design is at its best when it's a communal or a team effort, having multiple minds and people involved. I couldn't have painted a 300-foot wall by myself. It was me and my wife had to come together. We had to have our whole team come out. We had to have, my mom and dad were out there with me. My in-laws were out there with me. My silly friends that were no help at all, were out there with us. But now, forever, we get to drive by this wall and remember this experience that we got to share together. That's what's special about what we get to do, is bettering the human experience every chance we get. Design can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. We help navigate, and we help sales, and we help IPO market value, and that's all. We are here to better the human experience. That is what we're here to do. That is a heavy thing that we get to do, and a special thing that we get to do. And I've continued to get to do murals for the Royals. Most recently, getting to do one. We got to sneak in my boy Bobby Witt Jr. into this one. And then this summer, most recently, it was a really special project. The Kansas City Royals asked me to design a children's book for the Kansas City Royals. And they printed 30,000 copies, and we're giving them all completely away for free to our community, libraries, schools, and children to help literacy, which of course I wanted to be a part of that, and I commend the Kansas City Royals for understanding the value of that. So we got to do this book together. Here's a couple examples of that. I love designing the end pages of books, some end pages. But the places design will take you. I never in a million years thought that I was then going to get to throw out the first pitch at a Kansas City Royals baseball game. A designer. We aren't the ones that get credit very often. Are you kidding me? And I don't know if anybody watched the Dodgers game last night. They went pretty deep, 18 strong. I'm just trying to say, if they need half an inning tonight, I probably got a little bit left in the tank, But again, with sports, you always hear in sports, when a team is playing loose and fast, they're playing a little better. To me, it is. Design is the same way. The importance of play in our work is so unbelievably important. We have to remind ourselves to play in our work. And for me, it was 2015, and I found myself in a dark place. And I found myself in a place that, quite frankly, I didn't know if I wanted to do design much longer. I was burnt out. I was just worn out from revisions and clients and just a lot going on. I'm definitely someone that has some depressive tendencies that I had to deal with and understand and figure out. And I had to figure out a way to fall in love with design again, somehow. And I didn't know what that was or how I was going to do that. I needed maybe some positive habits to be injected back into my life. What were those creative habits going to be? What is it that I love to do more than anything is what I was asking myself. And for me, most of my life, I'm always at my most peace and my most joy when I'm drawing and making and creating things. How in the world do I get back to that? You know? I think about being a kid, and oh my God, all of us, we would lose hours drawing and exploring and just playing. How do I get back to that? I think that's kids have amazing habits because they don't have a lifetime of poor habits to fall back on like all of us, you know? It's like, oh, I had a hard day at work. It was so bad. Let's just watch another 9 hours of, Desperate Housewives of Rhonda. I don't know where they are, but where kids, they don't have these bad habits. They just explore and create just their own, whatever the hell they want without any outside vindication of any kind. And I think that's so special. And how do I get back to that kid is what I wanted to know. How do I get back to making things for myself and for nobody else? I think that's how I fall back in love with design and start to just feel a little better internally somehow. I peaked at age 6. So for me, I ain't doing nothing unless there's some rules and structure to that idea. Because if it's just something floated out there, I sure as hell ain't gonna probably do it, right? So for me, I said, can I find even just a minimum of 1 hour a week to play for myself and nobody else? No client brief, no project description, nobody revising what I'm doing, just create and make for myself. It can be longer than that, but at least I can find it 1 hour a week, right? So for me, my little rule was, hey, what if every Sunday I make a sun and I call it Sunday Suns, and let's do this for a little while and see if it changes the way I'm feeling a little bit about my practice and what I'm doing. So, okay, once a week, that's not bad. So I started to play, and it can be anything. Hey, maybe it's just shapes. Let's do some shape exploration. Hey, maybe it's the first Sunday after Christmas. Hit the brick, Santa. Maybe I want to paint a little bit. Maybe I want to make little weird sculptures. I love gouache. I wanted to try to explore gouache more. I'll start doing some gouache paintings. Cut paper. I sure got plenty of Amazon box laying around. I can paint on those. Start playing with larger pieces. Canvases. Opportunity to play with murals and installations a little more. Even when I would go do speaking events or visiting colleges, a university wanted me, this is a Louisiana Tech University, wanted me to come and maybe teach a mural workshop. I was like, sure, let's do it. Can we do it on a Sunday? Let's incorporate this thing into it. So we did it. And again, it was a team effort. It was a communal experience that we got to do together. And I'm a brand designer. I'm a brand designer. So many of my explorations within Sunday Suns were logos, were marks, were iconography, as you can see here. And it very much, this project was very similar to a branding project. When you create a logo, you create a mark, you're basically creating a vessel that you can pour meaning into. And that's what the sun was. Honestly, the sun could have been a shoe, unicorn, or a tree. But it was a vessel that I could pour meaning into every Sunday. How I was feeling or reflection on the world. It all of a sudden became something I look forward to every week. So when that client on Wednesday didn't like what I was making for them, no problem. I get to make whatever the hell I want in 3 days from now. That math doesn't check out, but you know what I mean. The more positive I started to think, the better I started to feel. I think about this, if you haven't told, I go off on tangents all the time, but my grandfather used to have this expression. He would say that if you sit in a barber chair long enough, you're eventually going to get a damn haircut. I was like, a very Midwestern idiom. But if I think positive enough, I think I'll start to feel a little more positive. And I did. To me, I absolutely love this psychologist, Adam Grant. I recommend everybody following him. He's a very smart guy, way smarter than I'll ever be. But he said this once, and he said, happiness is not a function of what you achieve, it is a function of how you spend your time. Success is a temporary thrill. Happiness lies in doing daily activities that bring you joy. There's always a new mountain to climb. You do not have to anchor your emotions to the summit. Happiness is not a function of what you achieve, is it a function of how you spend your time? How do you want to spend your time? My mind blown. I'm like, yes! How do I want to spend my time? I want to spend my time making things and creating things. That can be for clients. I love working with clients. It's even when they have weird revisions, it's normally a positive experience. But getting to make things for yourself because you fell in love with doing this by making things for yourself is important to continue to try to work in. I don't know if you got it, it's the sun and the moon. I love typography and getting to explore expressive typography. And so I've done this project for years and years, and of course my life started to change. My wife and I, we had a baby over the course of this project. Of course I had a son. I mean, duh. This is the designer photograph. It really looked like this the whole freaking time. He was not taking our direction at all. But as I started to do this project when he came around, my son definitely starts to show up in this work all the time. In the drawings or even just as a collaborator. I stole his blocks and painted on them. Please don't tell him that. This was again a collaboration with my son, but I love drawing with scissors. I love doing cut paper. And so I was doing this large cut paper piece, and my son very much wanted to come down and work with me. And I was like, all right, buddy. So he said he goes, I want to create monsters on the side of your drawing. I was like, oh, that's great, you know? So my son on the side started creating monsters of his own. You saw it right. So this is one of my son's creations while we were working. It's a great time to take a picture of the talk. And I love sports. So even like I would try every Super Bowl Sunday, I would create a badge to honor the Super Bowl. And it becomes these little mini series within a series. Oh, here's where they get good. But anytime anyone has a passion project of any kind, what's amazing is it becomes a calling card for your abilities and what you like to do, and a lot of times your strengths. And so this is a very simple just mark I did once. It's a very simple little, it's very heavy, it's black, it's heavy black, and a client reached out to us and needed a rebrand. Specifically, they needed something, and specifically a visual language for their product that was heavy, had some weight to it, because they're a legacy brand that had been around quite a while, and there was a ton of patterning within the packaging that they already had that needed to be refreshed, but it was going to stay there. There was a lot of equity in it. And so there was something about this that really spoke to them, but they thought the weight of it would work well as a counter with some of the kind of detailed patterning they had. And so you'll see some of the image library I started to create for this client. It's a brewery called Brewery Amagang up in Cooperstown, New York, if anybody's familiar. We were part of the rebrand team on that. And so you can see this visual library that we started to create and how similar it was to that sun I did. A few more just of the images, and then you can kind of see how it starts to apply to the product and why they needed something in their visual system to be a little heavier. Of course, they wanted a sun. Oh, no. I think it is so important to give yourself permission to be creative. In this world where we see so much work all the time, every day, and we're inundated by now robots that want to be creative also. It is so important to make human art. It is so important to not lose the human nature within the work you create. The worst days of all of our lives, we're going to turn to art. And I don't mean like, oh, kick rocks, they don't like my logo. I mean, we lose a friend or a parent, or we have a truly awful day. What do? We turn to poetry and writing and paintings, and just to see, has anyone ever felt as bad as I feel right now, and how did they get through it? That is the beauty of being a human artist, is helping other people get through moments, and people need to hear what you have to say. Don't ever feel like you cannot make that now. It is imperative that we continue to make human-based art. So I try. This is a sculpture, a part of my Sunday Sun series also. If anybody goes to the marketplace, we have a booth there. I might have a few of these over there if you want to come join me. This is the full color version. It comes in this packaging that I made for it. And then we made I brought a couple of these too. We made a couple limited edition colors too. So solid red. And then for all you goth kids, Black Sun. So I never in a million years thought my Sunday Sun project would be any more than a project I did for myself and a way for me to get out of this funk I was in. And then a couple years ago, the wonderful humans at Counterprint called me and said, I really think this would make a beautiful book. Would you ever be open to that? You bet your bottom dollar I would. Let's roll. I couldn't believe, I think Counterprint makes the most beautiful graphic design books in the market today. If anybody hasn't ventured to Counterprint, I highly recommend buying everything they make. And they're wonderful human beings, and they are a husband and wife publishing team that needs our support all the time, because that's really special. So how in the world we did this? We started to go through hundreds and hundreds of suns together. And John and Celine at Counterprint had the wonderful idea to organize it by, well, hey, what if we just organize this book by season? What if we show them by summer, winter, fall, and autumn? Because a lot of my sons were very, very much almost journal-like at the time of the season of life I was in, or the season itself. And that was a great way to start to organize hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of art. You can see some of the interior spreads. We did 3 different dust jackets, so it's all the same book, but we did 3 different colors, because you designers have very specific things you want to put in your home. So you can choose, or you can take the dust jacket off, and that's kind of what it looks like underneath. I get asked all the time, like, was there ever a Sunday like you didn't want to do this? All the damn time. My gosh, our world is just terrible a lot also. Not even just like me being tired and old. Yeah, that's the case too. But like more so, our world is very challenging sometimes. And it's hard to muster up that feeling in your gut to keep going, you know? There's a lot of opportunities. I mean, trying to create these in the response to the murder of George Floyd and just police brutality, the situation in Ukraine, bad American politics, and of course this went on during COVID, which was terrible for all of us. But by making these and creating work and putting it out into our world and getting responses from people, it did make me feel a little less alone during those times and connected to this community I miss so much. I think it's hard for me to articulate my feelings sometimes, true Midwest man. But by doing this work, it allowed me to verbalize how I'm feeling a little more. So I did this for 522 straight weeks. I never missed a Sunday. That's 10 straight years. Yeah, thank you very much. That's so kind of you. It was 10 years on May 25th, and that felt like a really good bookend to the project. Felt like a really good time to quit. It was already borderline psychopath behavior. If I kept going, guys, I think it was going to get weird. So these are the last couple suns I made. I love creating sculptures. I want to do more sculpture work. So I started to kind of explore some different mediums to create sculptures in. And this was the last one I made. But I don't think it's the end of the project. It continues to evolve. Just Just last month, I was invited to do a retrospect of all 522 of those suns and hang up all the originals at the University of Kansas, which was really amazing, rock jock. But ultimately, getting and seeing how people respond to them is what it's all about. And hopefully that's what it's about with your design work too, is how people respond and bring it into their lives. And I know that's that way with the suns. People make them for me and send them to me all the time. Obviously, no surprise, people tattoo them on their bodies all the time. And some of y'all don't need to send me some of those pictures. Like, it gets a little dicey. It's a little weird. You can keep them to yourself. You can just tell me you did it. It's cool. But more than anything, when children physically mail them or bring me sons, that means the world to me, that they value this. And then even more recently, this is just a quick little thing. A school in Scotland has started Sunday Suns as part of their art curriculum with their kids. And so you can see this, the multiple grades of kids creating suns, which is amazing to reinforce positivity and reinforce art and how valuable art is even at that age. And so, we kind of transition here a little bit about our studio. And the last thing I want to kind of share here is a project I've never shared with anybody before, for a client I've never talked about working for, but yet it's some of my favorite work we've ever done and we've never been able to share it. And so our studio, we are small by design. We believe in the power of being small. By being small, we can take on the work we want to take on, and we never have to take on projects we're not passionate about or excited about. Don't get me wrong, it's a business, we gotta do what we gotta do, but staying small really allows us to be nimble and work with people that we enjoy and respect and like. So our studio's in Kansas City, Missouri. It's in a neighborhood called the Crossroads. If anybody ever comes to Kansas City, a few photos of our studio. Of course, there's a mural in there. I co-run the studio with my wife, Jessica. She is the engine of our studio. She is the backbone of our studio. She's the best designer I've ever met in my life, that has the best attention to detail and the purest heart of any person I know. And some work that she's done, that's another cannabis brand that we've created that we haven't shared yet, that she was really the lead on. This is a wellness brand we're actually currently working on as we speak right now, that my wife is kind of the lead on. Again, some lettering my wife Jessica has done. There's some more lettering for Macy's that she's done over the years. A beautiful campaign she did for Proving Connection. Love that monogram. A couple gig posters my wife has done. She is truly amazing. Come see us at the marketplace. She's over there. She's holding it down. She couldn't even come to this talk. She's like, I hear you all day long. I don't need to hear you. But the backbone of what we do is build brands and build brand systems, and we have a pretty good process to that. From brand strategy to naming, to we do a ton of brand naming, concepts, obviously, then we refine and implement. There's a production level, and then so much of our brands are environmental, that live out in the world. So there's a construction administration level to what we do too. But let's be honest, brand strategy and design a lot of times is we're just trying to organize our clients' mind meld, you know what I mean? Like how do we organize this information? And hopefully through brand strategy, you're able to do that. For us, and how we like to do it, is we create brand strategy workbooklets, these custom little workbooks that we go through with our clients to understand their values. Who are you? What are your core values? What are your big, hairy, audacious goals? What are your brand attributes as a brand? Who are you? Who do you want to become? And then ultimately we kind of create these kind of brand strategy overviews that become kind of our Bible for a new brand that we all sign off on. As a creative team, we're all in alignment. The client is in alignment, that this is who we are and this is who we want to become. And that's how we're going to then design. So for us, we've been working with one of the biggest tech companies in the world of late on a very weird kind of niche non-tech work. And so we haven't been able to share a lot of times who they are. We've been really fortunate to be creating completely branded restaurants for Meta and their campuses all over the world. And we've never shared them before, so here's a few of them. So here's a few of the marks for a few of them around the world. Greenbelt, this is one in Austin. You can see some of the murals and custom wayfinding. La Mesa del Rey, this is in London. It's a South American restaurant. You can kind of see the servery. Love the signage, how the signage turned out. Somerstown, also in London. No expense spared, which is an amazing that they're willing to do that. Always hand-painted murals, which you can see here in Somerstown. I love how that mark turned out, that little monogram I made. Cast iron, this is also in Austin. We got to use a bunch of wood, and not only that, got to literally burn the logo out of the wood. We even made actually branding irons that they can use for all the meat that they cook there. That's like real branding, right? Hack Shack, this is this is in Cambridge, outside of Boston. We did this galvanized metal, like an old fish shack that you would see, you know, just super fun stuff. I was talking about Seattle. This is where their VR and Oculus headquarters is. So we wanted to play with reality and what it means, kind of like virtual reality and like kind of questioning what things look like. So you can see we did all these wild installations. So like throughout the floors and stuff, you can stand on them and it looks kind of fun and wonky. But the project I want to walk us through was we were asked to do 2 massive restaurants in New York City in the Farley building. And if anybody's familiar with the Farley building, that's the old former post office across from Penn Station in Madison Square Garden. And our client was going to take over almost the entire space. And they wanted us to design 2 restaurants for tens of thousands of people to eat 3 meals a day at and create the wayfinding system to direct everybody there. And we needed to get going like 3 days ago, so we ain't got no time for strategy or anything. Get going now, go. Okay, what's the vibe? What are we doing? Like, 2 restaurants, okay, you know? This is when you start to think about, okay, we can figure this out. At least we were given, they're amazing projects, and this particular one was really big and hairy, and it was, they have amazing chefs that are involved, so at least they had brand names that we could follow. But then we really had to think about, like, what's the work we would want to see in the world? Because we don't have any strategy or any real briefs to fall back on, and so at least we had cool names, I think. The first restaurant was going to be called Kong Food. It was going to be a sushi Asian restaurant. New York, Asian food, you guys get the vibe we're going for, okay. And then the second restaurant was gonna be Button Burger. It was inspired by this sculpture, which is down in the Garment District in New York City, which is very close. And specifically, they loved kind of Americana burgers. That's literally what we got. Like, that's all we got, and it's like, okay, see you in a few weeks, we need concepts, you know what I mean? And so for us and my team, we started just to explore and play and talk about big ideas. And like something I tried to start to like find parallels, right? And so like I know when like I've been to Tokyo or I've been to other cities, and I love these like illuminated box signage you see in Tokyo or even like Beijing. I think they're beautiful. And there's also like something amazing about how busy it is. And it also reminded me of like Times Square in New York, which is an interesting parallel of what we're designing. I also love the original 1930s typography from the original the King Kong posters. Just even the typography itself was always super inspiring to us. And that was something internally we started to really kind of lean into. I mean, even just like name stamps in general, people use them all the time, but it's such a cool cultural thing. They're so visual, they're so beautiful. That was something that we at least started to like kind of lean into. And so for me, because I'm a dinosaur, I do everything with pencil and paper first. Drawing is thinking, and for me, it's very true. Everything I do, anytime I'm thinking, I'm drawing and sketching. And so for me, it's not just logos, it's little illustration vignettes, it's typography studies. I start everything with pencil and paper before I move on. And then Button Burger was the same way. We had this sculpture we wanted to be inspired by, but we also wanted to start to think about like vintage and retro hamburger restaurants. And then I had like this epiphany. I'm like, you guys, they're a tech company. The internet burger. That should be a thing, you know? And so again, I sketch, I draw, I explore. Pencil to paper, that allows you to move fast, that allows you to move quick, that allows nothing to be precious. And so for me, I'm not going to walk you through the whole deck of what we did, but I'll give you some kind of highlights of each concept. And so starting with Kong Food, the first concept, we wanted to lean heavily into the Kong, the illuminated box signage that I was kind of talking about. What if we had graphics on all sides? What if we really filled the soffits with all these illuminated box signage? Every one of these projects we've done, we have amazing architects that we collaborate with that share with us elevations and renderings that we can start to play with space. You can see kind of how this first concept was starting to be built out. Big murals in the space. Of course, you had to have merch for all the employees. Kind of an overview of that first Kong concept that was influenced by that illumination. That second concept, we really started to lean typographic. Ooh. So you can kind of see the typography. And we started to create kind of a modular system. I wanted at least one concept where Kong actually was full size coming into the restaurant. You can kind of see there's an overview of the second concept. I'm moving a little quicker. But you can kind of see this modular system with definitely influenced by the vintage typography, Kong life size. And then the third concept, very much inspired by, again, that typography, but like wheat pasting in New York City. When you walk through the city and you see all these posters and things layered on top of each other, what if we did that and brought that into the space? And we layered all these surfaces with propaganda and messaging and graphics and layered dimensional signs on top of it. Again, starting to explore what these visual systems could look like. And that's concept 3 for Kong. And that's what was so gnarly about this one, was it wasn't just like designing one. You were designing 2 restaurants that simultaneously, and they were going to be right next to each other. So they had to work together, but they couldn't be identical. You know, almost think kind of like food court style, right? What could they look like but not be completely the same? And so with Button Burger, we wanted to turn the volume down a little bit, because Kong, if you didn't notice, was busy as all get out. So with Button Burger, we wanted to be influenced kind of by the retro classic Americana, but we wanted it to be a little simpler. Again, we had some illuminated signage again on the base. We brought in some sculptural elements, illuminated signage, but it's a little simpler and bolder. On one of the blade signs. Some of the merch. Kind of an overview of that first concept. Concept 2, a little more modern, custom script. Brought in some subway tile, kind of on the nose, but you know. We started to bring in more illustration. They loved this idea of like us showcasing some of the food through illustration. So we started on the columns dissecting their food. Like you'll start to see the ingredients and some of the things it's made of. I loved this blade sign on this concept, where like if you looked at it from one angle, it was a button, but you could see the ingredients pouring out on the side. Spoiler, they did not like that. And then concept 3, guys, we get real conceptual here. I brought in the internet burger. We did it. What if this concept, we lean in, you're an internet company, let's lean into the internet burger. We started to create patterning out of the internet burger and custom tile out of the internet burger and allowed this icon. We really just started to play with visual internet language all over this concept. You can see some of the tile we started to create for this one. And kind of an overview of this third concept. So what's wild is it wasn't just like pick your favorites. It was, okay, let's look at every Button Burger concept next to every Kong concept, and let's discuss this collaboration that's occurring. So that's Button Burger 1 with all Kong. There's Button Burger 2 with all the Kongs. And Button Burger 3 with all the Kongs. And inevitably, you guys, it was awesome. We got the comment that all of us love. Yeah, man, let's just Frankenstein them all together. Why not? That's a great idea. We strategically have them in buckets for a reason. But what I tried to remind myself, Frankenstein wasn't all bad. Do you guys remember the movie? Remember him and the little girl and the flower? He was so sweet. We were the dickheads that were chasing him with fire. Frankenstein's not that all bad. Okay. They love the illuminated box concept. Love it. That's great. We can do that. But we don't like Kong. He seems mean or upset. Can you bring in a happier Kong like this guy? And we love the wheat paste poster idea. How can we smash that into it also somehow? Okay, all right, that's not too bad. Buttonburger. We love the first concept. It feels like the vibe we want. We love the script. We love the word mark. But we love these illustrations where you show all the food. That doesn't go with it at all. And we love the internet burger. We love that idea. Let's move forward with that. With what? With what? Okay. No, we can do it. We can make hard decisions, guys. So ultimately it was kind of these two concepts living harmoniously together, and they do feel well. They do work well together. So we then started to revise these things. This is normally the part of the talk where I just smash cut to the final photos, and we're like, look at all this beautiful crap. This is amazing. Wow, right? We will here in 30 seconds. But the mistake we made was we came up with a concept that had hundreds of signage pieces. That was not smart. Because this is when I tell you, we have to write specifications for every single signage piece we make. So we had to field measure and draw and document every side, figure out every material we're going to use for every single signage piece. We then had to issue those to an engineer and signage fabricator who then would create engineer drawings that we then would have to review and make sure were accurate, not to mention samples and material tests and all the things we have to do. This was a very long process to do this, but it was worth it. And so here you can see, here's kind of the visual system with Kong, the logo system, and then we start to walk into the space. I love this simple little sushi sign. I don't know why, but I talked about wayfinding. This is an enormous space. So a huge part of the project was creating wayfinding to direct people throughout the space for 3 meals a day, thousands and thousands of people. So throughout the space, there are branded custom wayfinding all over the floors. Some more station wayfinding. Of course, murals turned out great. Sushi, he's not angry, he's just hungry. Great little illuminated sign, blade sign. And we did it, y'all. We did it. We got the wheat pasted posters into the concept. And what I also love in a world of fake wheat pasting templates that we all use all the time, I actually finally got to create a real wheat pasted poster wall. Oh my God, bucket list checked. And see some of the posters just individually there too. And for Buttonburger, which we'll get to here. And again, more wayfinding throughout the space, which is really fun to apply the system to the wayfinding package. And then Buttonburger, the logo system. And then again, it being directly next to Kong and how it worked together. We even got to choose furniture and fabrics with the architecture team, which was really fun to be able to do that. You can see the illustration style was updated to apply to this system a little more, but again, showcasing the specific food items. And the blade sign, another detail of some of that illustration work. My land, it's a lot of signage, you guys. And we got in the burger. We got the internet burger in there. The condiment section, we have some custom tile we made. A little Easter egg for some people. But it's been amazing to see how employees embrace these brands in this campus and put stickers everywhere and wear shirts and like really support this little company restaurants, you know? And so, I mean, I think what I learned is like, if you don't freak out, like Frankenstein can be kind of cool, you know? And when we go through all this stuff, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the hero's journey. It's It's a very common narrative archetype from Joseph Campbell, wrote about it many years ago. And if you've seen Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, it's all the hero's journey. It's all the same narrative archetype. But it is a hero is living an ordinary life, and he gets a calling to try something new. And he goes out on this journey, and he has all these tasks he has to achieve, and receives this calling to do these tasks. And by doing these tasks, he overcomes, and it's the climax of the story. He ultimately then goes back home with these skills and brings them into his new life. And I think about that Joseph Campbell narrative, and I am so glad I was invited on this journey by the Kansas City Chiefs and my dad and these people asking me to do this and asking me to partake in this community. And then I'm so grateful for Sunday Suns to allow me to practice and better my skills and explore and fall in love with design again. And I don't know if I could have done Kong if I didn't just make work for myself all the time and enjoy that part of the process. And so again, to recap, process over perfection. Perfection is a myth. You're never going to achieve it. I hate to break it to you. Have fun making work. Process is what's important. Don't cut out the process. The process is the project. Embrace play. The happier you are, the better your work is going to be. Trust dogs. This isn't about design. This is just good life advice I want to share. They know the bad ones, guys. They know. They can sniff it out. And last but not least, how can your work better your community and the world around us? I mentioned we are here to better the world around us. That is what we're here to do. And if our world has ever needed smart, creative, empathetic people more than right now, oh my gosh, we need you. Please, how can you help us better the world around us and the human experience that we're all going through? Because we desperately need it, and we desperately need you right now. And then please, we're all going to run to the party now at 6:30. I have a little booth down there with books and toys and lots of screen prints. Please join me and my wife Jessica and just like hang out and have a beer with me. I would love that. And last but not least, we are up against time. If we want to do just a couple of questions, I am happy to do just a couple questions before we get out of here. The only thing I would say, if anybody does, there are 2 microphones on either side. And last but not least, thank you so much for coming to this. Thank you.